FX Nation, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Guys, if you're enjoying the EMA series or any of the other series, do me a favor, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support in continuing to provide you with the best content that I can. So as we continue our EMA series, in this week's video, guys, we're going to go ahead and break down and take a look at the 50 EMA. I want to talk about the three main things that I use it for, but most importantly, how to use it. So as we continue talking about the exponential moving averages, and remember that every EMA has a purpose on our charts. If it doesn't have a purpose, it's not there. All right. So let's break down this 50 EMA. Now, the first thing that I use it for is going to be giving me the intraday trend. So the intraday meaning the trend of that actual day. All right, we have our directional bias and then we have our intraday trend, which is literally what's happening that specific day. So I use it for that specific reason. I also use it for trade confirmations. So price pinning to the 50 EMA, getting rejected from the 50 EMA, things of that nature. And then thirdly, I simply use it to take profits during the US session. So during the US session, you might get reversals, and the reversals will literally lead you about 90% of the time to the 50 EMA. All right, so I use it for those three specific things: intraday trend, trade confirmations, take profits during the US session. So now that you know what I use it for, let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about. All right, guys, so let's take a look at some examples here. The first one that we have is on pound JPY. Now, you can see that the setup itself during the London session here is a type 3. We get a move out of the Asian session and then directly right to the middle of the range. We end up getting a nice railroad track here, which is a great pattern for type 3 to take. But I want you guys to pay attention to where the 50 is. The 50 is the blue line here. Of course, you can see how the 50 is acting as a form of resistance and essentially is holding up price at this particular level. All right. So in this particular case, I would use the 50 EMA as a form of confirmation. All right. Typically, what I like to do is I like to use the 50 EMA as forms of confirmation in the London session, and then in the US session, I like to use them as take profit points on reversal trades in the US session. So I'll show you some examples of those as well so you know and can visually see what they look like. But let's take a look at another quick example. All right, guys, so we're looking at Euro JPY. You can see that this is on a Thursday. We're coming off of a peak formation low reset, and so we're looking for buys. Now, if we just look at the blue line, which is the 50 EMA, what's happening, right? In the intraday, meaning from the start of the day till the end of the day, this is telling me right now that prices should be going higher because price is above the 50 EMA. So what am I looking for anyways? I'm looking for buys because I'm coming off of a reset down here regardless. So this only just helps confirm what I'm looking for in the sense of directional bias. All right. Now, if we take a look at this pullback that we get here at the beginning of the London session, what did we end up getting here at the very top that almost hits the middle of the range, but the 50 EMA actually prevents it from hitting the middle. right? You can see right here where the 50 EMA prevents price from going anywhere lower to actually tag the middle of the range here. So if you take a look, we end up getting here a star pattern, right? And that is our pattern for typically a type 3. Now, in this particular case, we didn't get a type 3 because of the fact that the 50 EMA did not basically held up price. We did get an entry though on this because we were able to get a pullback, and the pullback allows us to get the best possible entry on this particular trade. All right, so obviously you can see it'll go something like this. But the intraday is the important part that I want you to notice, along with the pinning to the 50 EMA. All right, so on this example here, still on Euro JPY, what we're looking at here is we're looking at a reversal in the US session. So here's the big move that happened throughout London, and then we end up getting a W pattern here at the US session. Now, I want you guys to notice where the second leg produces right here a star pattern. Second leg produces a star pattern. That is what we need for our entry essentially. And then we also get a pullback right after. We get a pullback on this candle right afterwards, right? That pullback gives us the ability to enter the trade much at a discounted rate basically. Now, remember when I said earlier that the majority of the time when you have a reversal happen, it's at least going to go to the 50 EMA. And that's literally where this went. So this is where I would use it to take profit at on the 50 EMA for this particular example. Now we're looking at Euro USD. Take a look at this. As you can see, the 50 EMA is basically going up. So the intraday trend is to go higher. All right. Now you can see this. We actually get a type 3 pattern here that gives us a quarter wood as the pattern to trade on a type 3. We get a pullback candle here. The quarter wood also pins the 50 EMA. So of course, that's what we use for our confirmation. And the trade setup essentially looks something, like this. Okay. Now, a second way that we can use the 50 EMA as well is in the US session on continuation trades. So continuation trades look like this. When you get a pullback that's happening literally at the beginning of the US session, what do we end up getting? We end up getting a star pattern that also is pinning to the 50 EMA. So there is another entry right there for you on that particular trade setup. So it'd be something like this. And so now you have back-to-back trades in both sessions that were available for you just by using the 50 EMA. So in this example here, we could see that Euro USD came all the way down. We actually ended up getting a second leg here on the at the opening of the US session. You could see where we get railroad tracks here, right there, and then we get a really nice pullback that we can use as an entry. And of course, because we're in the US session and we're doing a reversal setup, what are we using to take profit? Well, we're using the 50. So anywhere on this pullback here on this red, we can actually get in on this red candle. And so the trade setup would look something like this. You would have well over a 2-to-1 risk-reward ratio, and then you take profit at the 50 EMA. So that's another example of how you can use the 50 to take profit on a reversal trade in the US session. Here's another example on Euro USD. We're looking for buys. The intraday trend is going up. And of course, we end up getting here a type 3 pattern. It goes up from the bottom to the top, comes right back down to the middle of the range, gets rejected at the 50 EMA along with being in the middle of the range. And then we get this big bullish candle that comes out, takes out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles previously. So we know that that is our move that we want to take. And that is the next candle is going to be our entry, because that's what we need for the confirmation. And then, of course, you can see what happens with the rest of the story. Here's another example on Euro USD. This time, I want you to concentrate on a continuation trade that happens in the New York session. So the continuation trade itself is right here. I want you to notice what happens. We get a huge push at the beginning of London, and then we get a pullback right back to the 50. The 50 is going down, so we're looking for sells anyways. And then we get this right here. Nice big railroad tracks that are also right on top and pinning to the 50 EMA. On the very next candle, we get a nice pullback there. That's the candle that we use for the entry on this particular trade setup. And so the setup itself looks something like this. And of course, you can see we can go well over 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio on this particular trade. All right. Here we have another example of a reversal in the New York session. This one is the same thing. You have a multi-session W right here. You can see how it basically goes right to the 50. As far as the setup goes, it's a multi-session W pattern, and your entries right here after the railroad track. That happens, of course. This is the trade right here. Take profit at the 50, and you can see how it just literally just goes sideways after that. Here's another example of a reversal. Again, this one's a multi-session W here that you see, and we get a second leg pattern railroad track. Your entries there, and then you can take profit right here at the 50. This one actually ends up going much higher than the 50, which is perfectly fine. But you could see that price action literally comes right back to the 50 and then dies off for the rest of the day. So the 50 in the US session is something that you're going to see price action almost get magnetized by it and actually go there all the time, over and over and over again. It's just something that we keep finding that happens literally almost daily on this. Here's an example of using the 50 EMA as a form of confirmation. As you can see, we have a 22 pip Asian range. Price comes out of the Asian range, goes right to the top, and then starts to create the M pattern here. We get a railroad track right here. The entry is there, and you can see that the 50 is basically acting as a form of resistance and stopping price from going higher. So this would be a good example of a type 2 pattern where you would be using the 50 as a form of confirmation, because it's acting as a form of resistance and holding up price so it won't go up any higher. All right. Here's an example of a type 1 pattern you could see happening in the London session, where you can actually use the 50 as a take profit. So the pattern itself, your entries here, and this right here would be your trade. Obviously, it goes much higher, so you could take it much higher, but the 50 is going to be your first take profit point on this particular trade. But you can use them as take profits. Here's another example of where you can use the 50 EMA as a form of confirmation. We have coming out of the Asian range, you can see price action comes down and then goes right back up to the middle of the range, gets rejected at the middle of the range, and of course the 50 is right there acting as a form of resistance. We also get a pattern itself, which is the star pattern. So here is a trade set up for type 3, where your entry would be here, and then obviously you can ride this down all the way to the bottom here of the US session. So another example of using as confirmation. So just to keep it simple, guys, and that's the best advice that I can give you is with any tool that you use, the more complicated that you make it, the harder you're making it for yourself. So don't complicate it. Keep it simple. All right. I'm not using it for all these other weird, crazy stuff. I'm literally using it for three things. That's it. Nothing else. That's all I'm using it for those three things: intraday trend, the taking profits, and confirmations. That's it. Okay. So hopefully, guys, watching this video, looking at these simple examples that I'm showing you, you can get some ideas as to what you should be looking for or how you can use and implement this into your specific trading. All right. So I hope this video brought you some value, guys. On the next video, we're going to be talking about the 200 and the 800 EMAs and how I use them specifically on the charts. And I'll give you examples just like I did here. So until next time, guys, trade safe and trade consistent. Guys, if you need any more help, please check out FXN Plus. That is literally where you could see my charts on a daily basis. You'll get access to the Blueprint Summit videos. It's 9 sessions over 14 hours. You get access to group sessions every single week that we do on Sundays. You can ask as many questions as you want. It brings a lot of value for you guys. There's about one more week left where you're able to get included with your subscription the Blueprint videos. Okay, so if you sign up before then, you will always have access to the Blueprint videos as long as you have FXN Plus as a subscription service. You'll have them for life as long as you're on the subscription. All right, so if you have any other questions, guys, just let us know. But thank you so much. Trade smart and trade consistent.